Charges will not be filed in the case of an inmate who died while at the Spartanburg County Detention Center.
We received new records from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division about the death of Lavell Lane. Deputies arrested Lane October 2nd and charged him with walking in the road. He died a few hours after he was booked into jail, and the coroner ruled his cause of death a reaction to an antipsychotic medication. Lane's family told us he suffered from mental health issues. Now, SLED took over the case, and we were able to get a copy of their timeline from the night Lane died. In it, detention officers say they moved Lane to a padded cell just after 11 at night because he was hitting his head against the wall. Then around 4:45 in the morning, Lane was found unresponsive. Detention officers did CPR, but when EMS got there, that's when they pronounced Lane dead. Now, the case was referred to the Attorney General's office, and in a letter dated March 30th, they said they are not recommending criminal charges because they agree Lane's death was from the reaction to that medication. Now, Lane's family previously told us they still have questions about how he died. Of course, we'll keep you updated on any new developments in that case.